Anthony, what has been your experience with financial planners? I never had one, thankfully,
Good for you.
so I'm throwing it to you. Give us a little bit of background here.
Well, I would say when I first started getting off on my career, I started managing my own
Mm.
kind of my own mutual funds and so forth. But then my brother-in-law referred me his financial planner, and he only charged 1%
Mm-hmm.
of the assets. And to be honest, what my theory was, or what my rationale was, like, if I manage it, this guy's a professional.
Ooh.
He should be able to outperform me by at least 1%. So, and then I didn't have to worry about it. So, but fast forward, a few years, to me, it was confusing because we'd meet every quarter and he would write on the board like all these different funds that I had. And then he would write the rate of return for that quarter a year. And I'm like, dang, dude, damn, I'm doing good. But then I looked on my statement. I'm like, this just
wait, this doesn't add up.
Yeah, it doesn't add up. And then I got and then when '08 happened, and I kind of figured that I need to take more control of my finances. In particular, I know I've shared a few times how much my kids have lost in their 529 plan. My son lost 60% the year before he's going to go to college.
Dang.
My daughter only lost 50, right? But the problem was, and to me, it was odd because it was supposed to be age rated, meaning the older they got, the more conservative they got. So I know everybody got punched in the gut, but why did my son graduating in 1 year lost more than my daughter who's graduating a few years later? And the thing is the box was never checked, that it was age rated. And that's like, okay, forget this 1% deal. I need to take a more active approach. And then when I got exposed to infinite banking and read Rich Dad Poor Dad, it really opened up my eyes. Because really, if you look at, Cameron, people that are wealthy and successful, what are typically the asset classes that they invest in?
Business and real estate.
Okay. Got none of that from my financial planner, right? Typical financial planners can only sell products that they have access to, right? They're not going to give you advice or help you grow your business, or they're not going to do anything in revolving owning real estate. Maybe there's a mutual fund or a REIT, but not getting the tax advantages and having that control. So that's when I realized, look, if I want to follow Rich Dad Poor Dad, if I want to create my financial freedom, I need to take more control.
Well said. And guys, if you guys are just new to kind of our podcast, we actually wrote a book. We co-authored a book on why financial planning has failed, but we beat up kind of the entire industry pretty good in that book. Mm-hmm. Right. So we'll make sure we get a link to that in the show notes. But let me summarize that book for you. Right. Financial professionals are trained by banks, brokerages, and yes, even insurance companies to sell you guys products. And those products are designed to separate you from your money. Right. It's our approach that anytime someone's trying to separate you from the money, you should be really, really concerned. So we have our hierarchy of wealth, and that is the last investment you should make when you start to hand money over to somebody else. So that should raise red flags for you right there. And let me tell you, the whole reason behind kind of this podcast is because of a phone call that I had with some clients earlier this week. Mm-hmm. Great phone call, but I'm going to relay to you kind of what that sentiment was in there. And the financial professional, right, that you go out and you talk to, I'm not a big fan of, neither is Anthony. And by their own admission, right, they cannot help you achieve financial freedom.
What do you mean?
Great question, man. I was in this networking group for a long time, and there was a financial professional in there. And every week we'd meet, and he would stand up and he'd say, "It's not my job to make you rich. It's my job to make sure you aren't poor." I know. And I'm just looking at this guy like, man, you know what? And every week I want to stand up and just say, it's my job to make you rich. Right. But I was nice.
Curious, how successful was he in the group?
He was just starting out. So to be honest, right. I mean, he was a glorified salesman, nicest guy in the nicest dressed guy in the room,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
He was one of those.
Mhm.
But unfortunately, right, if you guys have experience with financial planners, I always think it's really crazy is because when the market's good, what they're going to tell you is don't do anything, right? When the market's bad, they'll tell you don't do anything,
Hmm.
right? It's almost the same advice. And unfortunately, that's exactly what people do is they go out and they don't learn anything about real estate. They don't learn anything about entrepreneurship. And they certainly don't go out and start learning about ways to create multiple streams of income. I can't tell you the number of times that people call in each week after we do one of our podcasts and they'll say, "Hey, I've never heard about ATM business. Tell me more." Right? I've never heard about a medium-term rental business. Tell me more. And so again, this week, one of the phone calls that we got, it was from somebody that called in and they were telling me about their experience with the financial planning industry. And really what the gentleman said was, you know what? I've been investing in my 401k and my IRA for the last 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And what I asked him, I said, well, what's been your experience? And he kind of laughed and he goes, well, my 401k, he says, I've seen that lose half of its value twice in the last 25 years. And he goes, my IRAs, he goes, I've been putting money in, but I had realized it wasn't going anywhere. And what he said is he finally came to the realization that what he was doing was not working. And with the advice that he was getting, he was not going to be able to achieve financial freedom. We just did a podcast on financial freedom. So, Anthony, I don't want to spend too much time on kind of what financial freedom looks like because I think it's different for everybody, but I think it's pertinent here to kind of share with our listeners. What's your vision of financial freedom?
Yeah, well, first, let me tell you what my typical financial planner's vision was.
Yeah.
And that was retiring at, I think it was 55 or 60. Right. So I'm just working my butt off and then I can enjoy the fruits. Hopefully when I'm in my 60s. And their version was building a high net worth. And kind of my personal vision, again, we follow a lot of what Robert Kiyosaki says, and we believe financial freedom is your passive income to be more than your monthly expenses. You want to see the entire episode? Click here. If you want to learn how investors use infinite banking to increase their returns and lower their taxes, click here. If you want to see if infinite banking is for you and you have some questions, hop on a discovery call with us and one of our coaches. The link for that will be in the description.